My husband's estate, valued at $80 million, along with our house, will be passed down to me. With no children of our own, everything belongs to me. My sister-in-law's condescending attitude has been quite bothersome. I'm Emma, a 45-year-old part-time worker. My husband and I have two sons, one in his senior year of high school and the other a sophomore. Our eldest son is preparing for college entrance exams this year with dreams of becoming a lawyer, a goal he has cherished since childhood, likely influenced by my older brother Oliver. Oliver is a lawyer who, a few years ago, established his own law firm and hired several attorneys. Growing up, my eldest son admired Oliver and excelled in his studies, consistently earning top grades. When Oliver learned about my son's ambition, he was thrilled and supportive. My son often told Oliver, "I want to be a lawyer like you, Uncle," to which Oliver would respond with a chuckle, "I hope you become a lawyer quickly to follow in my footsteps." Although Oliver and his wife, who is 10 years his junior, visited us frequently, I found her demeanor quite off-putting. Despite her youth, she had a grumpy disposition and never visited us, leaving me curious about her true nature. When my brother and I lost our parents at a young age, he stepped in as a parental figure. After I married, he too found a spouse. While we were initially relieved to hear that Oliver was marrying someone younger, my first impression of this fiancé was not as positive as we had hoped. Her sulky expression during our first meeting left me wondering why she seemed so unhappy. After their marriage, my husband shared my concerns, commenting, "She wasn't exactly a pleasant bride, but what can we do?" Shortly before their wedding, Oliver purchased a new house, which we visited to celebrate. The house was stunning, a testament to Oliver's success. However, we didn't see my sister-in-law during our visit. My husband, trying to lighten the mood, joked, "Has your wife already left you?" But upon seeing Oliver's stern reaction, we felt uneasy. Oliver explained that whenever there's an occasion, my sister-in-law returns to her parents' home. That day, she was staying over for her mother's birthday. My husband, realizing his joke might have been in poor taste, felt a bit embarrassed. Out of the blue, my brother asked us with a serious expression, "If I can't have children of my own, would you consider letting me adopt one of your kids?" At first, I thought he was joking, but his demeanor suggested otherwise. I was caught off guard and struggled to respond, while my husband, seemingly unfazed, laughed and said, "We don't know what the future holds. Let's talk about it if it ever comes up. If you're interested in our children, you're welcome to choose whichever you like." Although my husband brushed off the question lightly, I couldn't shake my concern. The issue of adoption troubled me, especially given the ongoing tension between my brother and his wife. While it was their personal matter, I couldn't help but worry. In the following months, whenever we visited my brother's home or he came to ours, my sister-in-law was always absent. My brother never mentioned her, and I hesitated to bring her up myself. Their marriage had lasted over a decade, and it was as if she had faded into the background. This year, when my eldest son was accepted into his dream law school, my brother broached the subject of adoption once more during a visit to celebrate the news. "As I mentioned before, would you be open to letting me adopt one of your children?" he asked again. With their difficulties in having children, his question carried more weight this time. Though they had recently married when we first discussed this, my brother now seemed genuinely serious. My husband, maintaining his casual attitude, responded, "Would you prefer our eldest son since he's aiming to become a lawyer?" His reply seemed straightforward, but I was apprehensive. It was a significant decision for our children, even though they would be placed with my brother. My main concern was my sister-in-law's attitude. I worry she might mistreat my son, who would not be her biological child. I asked my brother, "Is your wife on board with the adoption?" My brother, with a somewhat grim smile, assured me, "We've already talked about it. Don't worry about her." I felt somewhat reassured that they had discussed it, but I needed more time to think. I decided to talk to my sons, who were now in high school, to let them weigh in on the decision. We left the matter unresolved for the moment. However, a few days later, I received a call from my brother's lawyer's office informing me that he had collapsed. I rushed to the hospital in a state of alarm. I found the staff from the law firm waiting anxiously when I arrived at the hospital. My brother had suffered a stroke at work and was unconscious. After I showed up, the staff left, mentioning that they were unable to reach my sister-in-law. I tried calling her landline, but she didn't answer, and I didn't have her cell phone number. My husband and second son arrived soon after, but we still couldn't get in touch with her. Eventually, my second son discovered a smartphone among my brother's belongings. We managed to unlock it and search for her contact information. When I called her from the phone, she answered with evident irritation. "I told you not to call me again. I'll sue you," she snapped. I tried to calm her down. "This is Emma, Oliver's sister. My brother has collapsed and has been taken to the hospital." Her tone softened immediately upon realizing it was me. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were calling about Oliver," she said, her voice now more concerned. I explained my brother's condition and the hospital where he was admitted, but her response was surprisingly nonchalant. "I'm tied up with other things right now, so I can't come to the hospital. Just keep me updated on his condition," she said before abruptly ending the call. I was left wondering how she could prioritize other tasks over being with her husband during such a critical time. Realizing that my sister-in-law was unlikely to offer any support, we decided to manage my brother's situation ourselves. With my eldest son having finished his university entrance exams and spending most of his time at home, he began visiting my brother daily on my behalf. Despite our efforts, my brother remained unconscious and in critical condition, while my sister-in-law continued to neither call nor visit the hospital. A week after my brother's hospitalization, I called my sister-in-law again. She answered the phone with a cheerful tone. "What's the matter? Did he die?" Her blatant insensitivity nearly drove me to anger, but I managed to respond calmly. "He's still alive. Why don't you come to the hospital?" Her reply was dismissive and irritated. "I'm neither a doctor nor a spiritual healer. There's nothing I can do for his recovery." Her lack of empathy only fueled my frustration, and I ended the call abruptly. I began to suspect that my brother's interest in adopting one of my sons stemmed from his resignation about having children with his wife. It seemed evident they weren't getting along. When my brother's marriage was announced, he mentioned they met through a marriage agency. It crossed my mind that perhaps my sister-in-law had married him for his status and the benefits it could provide, which only angered me further. When I shared these concerns with my husband, his response was even more chilling. "If Oliver dies, his wife will inherit the entire estate since they don't have any children," he pointed out. Reflecting on my brother's recent visit, where he had discussed the adoption, I began to wonder if his motives were influenced by his thoughts on inheritance. I wish I could have made a decision earlier, but the situation was beyond my control. After my brother's visit, I casually brought up the topic of adoption with my two sons. My second son, who is currently without a clear goal, expressed a willingness to be adopted. He seemed to believe that being adopted by my brother would offer him a more comfortable life. I expected my eldest son, who looks up to his older brother, to feel the same way, but his response surprised me. "I don't want to be adopted. As the eldest son, I want to take care of you, Mom and Dad." His dedication brought me great joy, but I also knew that, given his aspiration to become a lawyer, he would have been the ideal candidate for adoption. I felt a deep sense of regret that I couldn't finalize the adoption process on behalf of my unconscious brother. I had no desire for my brother's inheritance, but I was determined not to let even a penny go to my sister-in-law, who seemed to be waiting for his death. Despite my hopes for his recovery, my brother never regained consciousness and passed away a few days later. I had no choice but to inform my sister-in-law. "My brother has passed away. Can we arrange a funeral?" I asked. Her response was unnervingly cheerful. "It's all up to you. Please don't ask me to be involved in the formalities," she said, clearly relieved to avoid any responsibility. I was seething with frustration but managed to end the call. My husband and I took charge of the funeral arrangements with considerable assistance from the law firm's staff. Though my husband was concerned about the future of the firm, my brother had already made provisions. Despite being the firm's representative lawyer, he had entrusted its management to a reliable colleague, ensuring its continued operation. The turnout at my brother's funeral was overwhelming, with so many wreaths that they could barely fit in the hall. It was a testament to how much he was respected and admired. My second son, who helped with the arrangements, felt a pang of regret when he saw the high-profile attendees. "I should have known how incredible he was. I would have gladly been adopted," he said, his frustration evident. My husband and I shared a sense of understanding regarding his disappointment. As I served as the pallbearer, no one inquired about my sister-in-law's absence, nor did anyone bring it up. It was as if we were the only ones aware of her non-participation. My brother and his wife had foregone a traditional wedding, opting only for a honeymoon, so even relatives might not have been fully aware of her absence. I almost wished they had never married. It seemed unnecessary to have a wife who wouldn't attend her husband's funeral. and I regretted not allowing my brother to adopt my second son sooner. I feared that she would take full control of my brother's estate with the help of the law firm staff. With the funeral over, I was left grappling with these thoughts and feelings. I hosted a meal at my brother's house to express our gratitude to everyone who had supported us. We hoped it would provide some comfort and closure. Just as we were trying to find solace, my sister-in-law made an entrance wearing an ostentatious pink coat. Her arrival, timed right after the funeral, seemed almost calculated. I greeted her with a hint of annoyance. "Why are you only showing up now?" With a broad smile, she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "My husband's estate of $80 million, along with this house, will come to me. Since we had no children, everything is mine." Her triumphant declaration was met with an unexpected reaction. My brother's subordinates began to laugh. We exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of the reason for their amusement. Irritated, my sister-in-law snapped at them. "What's so funny? Show some respect." One of the lawyers, still smirking, replied, "We're aware that you're officially divorced. We found out about the divorce settlement the day before he collapsed." I was stunned. "What? You were divorced?" I glanced at my sister-in-law, who was now visibly enraged. Her face darkened as she clenched her teeth. Another lawyer added, "Additionally, it was reported that you were ordered to pay alimony due to the affair that led to the divorce. That's unavoidable." Fuming, my sister-in-law shot a venomous look at the lawyer who spoke. "I'm not obligated to pay alimony, am I? I have no one left to pay." She tried to sound defiant, but the lawyer's response was swift and decisive. "The right to alimony is part of the estate and will be inherited. You'll need to pay it to Emma, the inheritor." It dawned on me for the first time that I was my brother's sole inheritor. With their divorce finalized and our parents gone, the entire estate was mine. My sister-in-law appeared to grasp this reality as well, her face turning pale with horror. She looked at me, a mix of fear and anger in her eyes, causing me to take a step back. Still unconvinced, she raised her voice. "Don't I get half of the estate now that the divorce is finalized?" A lawyer, looking dismayed, answered her, "Oliver gave you a settlement at the time of the divorce. I have a receipt to prove it. He also purchased the house before your marriage, so it's not subject to division." I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction watching her being put in her place. Despite the mounting evidence against her, she attempted to remain upbeat and said with a forced smile, "There's also life insurance. I should still be the beneficiary." Her audacity was striking, especially given the circumstances. She claimed she had changed the beneficiary to herself. But the lawyer was quick to refute her claim. Oliver was meticulous. He likely updated the beneficiary when the divorce was finalized. Determined to confirm this, I searched through my brother's belongings and found the life insurance policy. When I showed it to my sister-in-law, she snatched it from my hands and scanned it impatiently. Her face fell when she saw the beneficiary's name was listed as mine. Defeated, she handed the certificate back to me, her shoulders slumped. Realizing she wasn't making any headway, my sister-in-law blurted out her true frustrations. "I married a lawyer thinking he was wealthy, but all I've ended up with is a small amount of money and alimony to pay. This was a huge mistake." The lawyer responded with a hint of grim satisfaction. Oliver said the same thing. He regretted consulting a marriage counselor and felt he'd made a massive error. While my brother had never shared his grievances with me, he had been candid with his colleagues. Unable to argue with the facts, my sister-in-law rolled her eyes and left my brother's house. She would eventually have to pay the alimony in installments, but without a job, she quickly began searching for employment. Her lack of work experience led her to quit almost immediately. Desperate for a quick solution, she re-registered at the marriage counseling agency, seeking a wealthy man to support her. She deceived a wealthy suitor into believing she needed money for their marriage, but was soon caught and reported to the police for marriage fraud. According to my brother's lawyer, no alimony was ever paid to me. When I met with the lawyer to discuss the situation, he explained that with her recent arrest, receiving alimony might be difficult for the foreseeable future. I wasn't particularly interested in the alimony. I was more focused on ensuring she faced consequences for her actions. I intended for the police to thoroughly investigate her other crimes and pursue felony charges in court. After inheriting my brother's property, my family moved into this spacious house, and we were thrilled to leave behind our previous apartment. My husband and sons were overjoyed with the new space. My eldest son, inspired by the events and the legal discussions he witnessed, redoubled his efforts in law studies. Even though he wasn't adopted by my brother, I hoped he would honor his legacy by becoming a great lawyer. My second son, on the other hand, expressed disappointment about the inheritance. With a half-joking smile, he said, "Honestly, I wish I had been adopted by uncle so I could have inherited everything."